Imagine some of the world's best editors all in one room speaking about how you can create an amazing edit. That's what you're going to see here, where it's part of a 2-day mastermind that I hosted for my coaching students, and we just spoke about how do you make amazing edits and how do you make a shit ton of money doing what we love doing. That's what you're going to see now, and we spoke about how do you actually create cool edits that gets you clients, how do you build an editing style that isn't just flashy but actually works, and more importantly, how do you implement storytelling techniques in your visuals so that it's not an overwhelming mess. I think you're going to find it super valuable, so we'll jump straight in. Cool. Pretty much what I found with making good edits, there's 2 parts. I'm going to go over design and dynamic together. There's design principles that you want to keep in mind. This is where, how does a scene actually look? And then dynamic principles is, once you get it looking good, how do you make it move? The reason it says principles is that any style, any niche, any effect, if you get the principles wrong, it's going to look like shit. This is why you can get 2 editors who follow the same tutorial. One of them looks great, one of them looks terrible. It's why you get editors who have the same assets, access to the same software, access to the same libraries of assets, and they just look completely different. It's because the principles are different. Now, I've broken down design principles after hundreds of hours of thinking into 5 principles. Let me find it. Yeah, pretty much I've boiled it down to these 5. I don't know if you guys can see that, but you've got composition, which is basically where things are placed on the screen. Sizing and spacing, which is how big are things and how far apart are they from each other. And color, which is, I think you asked about that, how different colors interact with each other, what they mean, and depth. The illusion that there's a 3D scene on a 2D screen. So those are the 5 principles. We can cover them very briefly each, but is there any of those that you guys want to cover in specific? Depth?
Yeah, I'd say depth.
Depth's the main one? Okay. We can start with that one then. So depth is pretty much the illusion that you've got a 3D scene, even though it's a 2D image. And there's multiple ways of creating it. I'll just show it now. So yeah, pretty much it's perceived separation. So if you guys look outside of this window now, it's like you don't even have to think about it. Fundamentally, you understand like this pane is more closer to you than that window there. That plant is closer than that tree over there. Like we just naturally perceive it. It's not this thing where we cognitively think like, oh, which one's closer, which one's further. Edits look really damn weird when you don't have that feeling, where something might, like you have these 2 circles, which one's further, which one's closer. But suddenly you have like a shadow which overshadows on this one, and now you know this one's in front, because this shadow can only hit that one if it's in front. So we naturally understand depth, and it basically makes things look real. I think this is a video of someone else's in the Lair. This is a scene basically with me getting rid of all the effects that created any sort of depth. I mean, as soon as you add like the depth effects, which we'll talk about, you basically just create something like this. I've changed nothing about dynamic principles. All of this is just effects to do with depth. Same scene, same assets, same composition, same sizing, same spacing, just depth. Then you have something like this where, okay, this one's not as obvious, but like you can see the difference. That's just depth. This one, yes, it's a well-composed scene. Everything's fine in terms of sizing, like there's no problems, like everything's evenly spaced, these are centered. You add some depth effects and suddenly, okay, you can see more easily. Let's hit the plane. I actually organized that. But yeah, like this is a scene where everything's well composed. Like this space is the same as this one, this is the same as this, it's a decent size. You add depth effects and suddenly it actually looks a lot better. I'm not going insane, it does look better, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, but you just see this again and again, where something like this, you add some depth effects, suddenly it just feels more real.
It feels more 3D.
Exactly, yeah. And here's the thing, like, I'm not asking, like, you can use 3D for this 100%, but even 3D will look terrible if you don't get the depth effects right. But if you don't want to go through the hassle of learning 3D or implementing it with every single animation, you can get a very 3D feel just with depth effects. We'll speed through them, but basically there's 8 different ways that I found that create depth. And this took me about 30, 40 hours just for this lesson. There's layering, which is the fundamental, which is just putting shit on top of another. So, for example, let's say you have a scene where you have a person here, and imagine this in a documentary context. You have a person here and you want a PNG sort of here, right, of like whatever they're talking about. Instead of just having it here, what you can do is just have it like this. So suddenly it's like slightly behind, you've layered them. Let's say you're creating a scene where you have like a main subject. Let's say it's just text, right? Like that, like 2 pieces of text. Instead of you might have like different parts. Let's say this text said top 5 AI tools. Top 5 AI tools, and then you have like different like ChatGPT logos, stuff like that around here. Instead of having it like just in this corner, have it so that it actually like intersects with the text. So having stuff like that, literally layering, can you sort out please? Literally layering can help. Drop shadows, which is now that you've layered, putting a shadow. So on the text there, on each of these ones, having a drop shadow. Basically, everything that I put on my scene that isn't the full screen thing will have a drop shadow. Basically everything. And if you look at some of the examples, it's like, that has a drop shadow. I don't think the highlighter does, but the text has a drop shadow. This is probably a better example. This, I've gotten rid of the drop shadows. Here, this has a drop shadow that's black. This has a drop shadow. This has a drop shadow. Every fucking thing has a drop shadow. Once you realize this, you cannot unsee it. And when people miss out drop shadows, you will realize it looks so damn bad. So drop shadows is the next one. Any questions so far?
I was gonna say about like the layering.
Yeah.
Isn't it with some things it's like you're kind of like covering it up. Like say it wasn't like multiple things on the scene, it was just like 2 assets.
Yeah.
And when you're hiding behind another thing, isn't it like kind of like distracting, but like it's like taking away from it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good point. You don't have to layer completely. So you notice how here I showed this layering. You're intersecting this much. Yes, you can go too far, and people do, where it's like you're covering the main information, where that's more of a composition topic, but you don't want to cover information. What I recommend, if you're going to cover text, for example, here I had the logo behind it, you might have something that's in front. I recommend don't cover more than like 10 to 30% of the text. After about 10 to 30% of text, I found it gets really hard to read. Have you guys seen those thumbnails where it's like, you have the person here and then there's like 1 million or something, like text behind them? If you cover too much, it gets really hard to read. Like you don't know what the word says. But if you cover like 1, 2 letters, it's fine. Similar concept. When you're layering, if you want to go on top, which I might have done, let's see. Yeah, I did it here. So like, this intersects, this Bitcoin logo intersects with this. I think there's a V-edit of someone's. Is it in here? No, it's not. But it intersects here. You know what I mean? It's not gonna, if I did this, yes, is a problem. But that's layering. Let's see. We might as well go through this lesson. I'll like speed through it. And by the way, if you guys have questions or like concerns, interrupt me. That's layering, drop shadows. Glows is the next one. We're pretty much, yeah, glows is where it's basically like drop shadows, but it adds a bit of a glow to the image. I found that glows and drop shadows just work really damn well together. So usually, if I'm gonna use a glow, I'll use it with a drop shadow, and just to see what that looks like. It's basically like this is without a drop shadow or glow on anything. This has a drop shadow only, so there's a white drop shadow, there's a black drop shadow on this element. There's a drop shadow on this, there's a drop shadow on the item. This is with the glow and drop shadow. So glow only, like this is VR glow specifically, but same concept. What I found is glow on its own can look good, but it blends in with the background, which makes it, has anyone seen that happen? Where you put on glow and it blends in with the background, but drop shadow sometimes isn't strong enough. Putting them together can create crazy nice depth. You might have to mix and match the order, try a different order if it looks shit, but those two together look good. Color is the next one. Just have contrasting colors. We'll go into color more depth because that's another one of the design principles that you have to learn before this technically. But basically like, this is super hard to read against this. This is a lot better against this blue color. These ones are like harder to read, as you can tell. These are clearer. You can use, if you search, I believe it's, if you just search like color wheel on like your laptops, if someone next to you has one, you can see it as well. Just search like a color wheel. basically you want it to be on opposite sides, or at least like roughly opposite, and you create good contrast. Yeah, so basically, yeah, exactly. So like, if you look at a color wheel, it's basically just a wheel with like loads of colors. Opposite sides will contrast the most. So that's what you see here. Like purples, yellows, reds, greens, kind of, like that sort of thing, rather than analogous colors, which you learn about in a second, which don't contrast much. So let's say you want to put an asset on top of a background, like a colored background. That asset, could you get it to be a color that contrasts with the background? Or if you have to use that color for the asset, can you change the background color to contrast with it? Because otherwise it just blends in with the background like you see with these. Make sense?
Does it have to be like a direct opposite color?
Doesn't have to be direct. So the thing is with color, different colors mean different things. So let's say you want more of let's say it's about like wizardry and potions. This is a random topic, but imagine that's the context. What were we thinking? Like what colors, stream out colors?
Green.
Purples, greens, exactly. Purples, greens. I don't know where that comes from, but it's like everyone there's like an intuition to it. Minecraft, yeah. It's like purples, greens. So, okay, maybe if the asset that you're working with is green, let's say it's a poison potion, purples, greens go really well together. Purples, yellows, purple and yellow are technically opposite. Green is like here. You know what I mean? So it's like far enough. But if it was like here and here, I wouldn't layer them on top. You can use them next to each other, and I'll show that in the color section, but you want to have different colors that contrast. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Cool. So basically, this is a little more in depth, but basically you can contrast in different ways, either with hue, which we talked about, the opposite sides. You can contrast with saturation, so maybe the background is more desaturated, the foreground is more saturated, so you can create depth like that. Or in color, this is just within depth using color, you can do it using lightness, which is maybe the foreground is more bright, the background's darker. So even within color, there's different ways to create that depth. Make sense?
So it's basically just contrast,
Yes.
like having contrasting things.
Exactly, yeah. With using color, yeah. But it's nice to understand like what does contrast mean. It's just difference in hue, saturation, or lightness. That's that first principle. And this is just examples of using color. Like that orange completely goes, like if you look at the color wheel, that is nowhere near the orange. Same with the green. The blue is kind of close, but it's like they've taken like further parts, because green and blue are next to each other, but they've taken like slightly further parts, if that makes sense. This blue is technically the same as this, but because it's a different lightness, he got away with it. Guys see that? Yeah. And then I just put a shit ton of examples. Like the white obviously goes with the black, complete opposite lightness. You see a bit of layering here as well. You guys see like this slightly goes above. Obviously that hat goes above this. These, it's sort of like layering, but you've got like just different things that you've slapped on around. It creates depth because it makes it feel like there's different things going on. Here, this scene, you guys have seen the scene before this, right? With the airplane. When I put the text and I wanted to put focus on it, what I did is I changed the color, so I made this darker and desaturated, and then now this pops out more. So you've got contrast with saturation. Does that make sense? Cool. There's a shit ton of examples. This is what happens when you do it badly. I think this is Carter's piece. Yeah. You guys might see some of your work, by the way. This is like an example of doing it really shit. So you can, most of us probably can't even see that like until I point it out. That says hiring video editors. People fuck it up like this. Now this is an extreme example, but a lot of us do this all the time, where we take super similar colors and slap them on top of each other, and we just fuck up ourselves. Same thing with this, like this black just blends in with the black. There's no contrast. The saturation is so high for the background, but the front is super saturated too. It's like, what do you focus on? Everything's super vibrant. So same with this, like super bright. It's hard to read. Has anyone ever tried seeing like yellow text on a white document? And it looks fucking terrible, right? Is it like squinting your eyes? It's that same concept. Cool. Next one is blurs. So all of these, realize it's not like you either use this or you use that. It's like you can use a mix. There's some you will use more than others, but blurs is another one I use. So this is where you can literally put something out of focus. So a key concept with composition and just design in general, you need to have a clear focus in your scene. You'll notice even when I'm drawing all of these, like I kind of naturally do this. Like with this one, the focus is the person, right? And this is sort of a secondary piece, that's why I put it behind. With this, the text would be the main focus and everything else is supplementary. You always need a clear focus in your scene. And to create focus, there's two ways. You can either highlight something as more important, or you can just make everything else less important. So there's actually two ways to create focus. There's both ends of the spectrum. Does that make sense? Yeah, cool. So blurring something to literally take it out of focus, like for this, that I wanted people to focus on this text. I don't want them reading these or looking at them, so I just literally blurred it. This is a scene I didn't make this one, but he wanted the background gone, so he just blurred it. Stuff like that. It's pretty cool. But yeah, we'll just rush through these. Oh, I think that was yours. Yeah. I think that's Autumn's. But you guys see it happening again and again. But yeah, this is where it's done badly, where there's so much clarity in the background, but there's also clarity in the foreground. So there is no foreground or background. It's just mush. Like it's as if that tree to your eyes was as big as this bush. Like it just wouldn't make sense like cognitively. So that's why we use blurs and we just create depth. So whenever you do this type of animation where there's a ton happening in the background, just blur it out. It fixes everything. Vignettes, basically dark border, looks cool. I think that was another. Your documentary works so fucking good, man. But yeah, you guys see this like sort of darkening, just brings focus towards the middle. And vignettes, something interesting, it doesn't have to be like a radial vignette. This is technically a vignette. This I've actually taken a lot more inspiration from, but it doesn't need to be directly circle. Then textures, which is basically just make shit not flat. Did you see that red one with the $1,500? The background before was just red.
Oh, yeah.
But then what I did, I added a grid line. I made it like noisy. Do you guys know what noise is? Who here doesn't know what the noise effect does? Cool. Noise is basically little dots that just keep spamming. Like, you know have you ever seen a video that's really dark? And it's like, you see that grain?
Yeah.
That's noise. The thing is, noise can be used purposely to create texture. Does that make sense? Do you have your laptop with you? I think someone else can show you. Try on someone's Premiere. Add noise to it.
Mine here. Remember the edit that you told me to change with the noise?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can add it here.
Yeah, so like adding noise to a background makes it look really cool.
Add it into this background.
Also, if you struggle with gradient quality after you render, noise fixes that. Has anyone here done a gradient and it bands? Like let's say you did a gradient and it fades really nicely in Premiere, but then as soon as you render it, it just goes like this.
Yeah.
Has anyone seen that? No, you haven't seen it? Search banding, color banding, gradients. This will happen if you don't add noise. Noise fixes that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Like, I found that when I use noise, YouTube compresses it
Yeah.
pretty harshly.
It should be the opposite.
Something that I found
Is your bitrate high? What bitrate are you rendering in?
Like the video is actually good and everything, you can see it, but when the client uploads it to YouTube compresses.
What videos are they?
Like Minecraft.
How fast is the movement? Like the literal like movement of the
Pretty
screen.
slow. So,
What quality? 1080?
what?
1080?
Yeah.
What bitrate do you render in?
35. It looks fine.
I would try 1440p. The reason, do you know what VPO9 codecs are?
No.
Okay, basically, this is an important concept for rendering. Have you heard of it? You're smiling. Yeah, basically, if you have a fast-moving video, or if your 1080p videos look like shit after you upload it to a channel, so you have a sick video, it looks like a shitty mess after it renders, after it's uploaded, render it out in 1440p or 4K. What that does is, long story short, YouTube has two types of rendering codecs. I'll show you that now. let's say, okay, let's go Homo's video. If you right click, go to stats for nerds, it says here, VP09. Most videos will be AVC1. AVC1 is the shit codec that small channels get. I believe it's under a few million, usually. And it's a less efficient codec, which means it gets compressed more. You can, on a big channel, usually YouTube allows 1080p videos to go into VP09, which is a better codec. Basically, in general, VP09 compresses less. If you want to force VP09, which is the better codec, on a small channel, then what you can do is just render it out in 2K or 4K, and then when that's uploaded, you'll get better bitrate, so it'll fix that. Cool. Yeah, check that on that channel.
Something I found was that Frame.io compresses it. Like every single time I add noise, like I would add a lot of noise.
How much do you add?
I would add like 50.
50 fucking %?
Well,
Dude, I'm adding like 3.
Well,
50 is crazy.
yeah, but it would just like, Frame.io would just, or probably a little bit less, but Frame.io would just like make it almost unnoticeable. And so I think Frame.io.
When you say compression, how are you defining that? Does it go blocky?
No, it's just like, it doesn't look like it's there. It looks like.
That's fine. That's not the problem.
But whenever I uploaded it to Google Drive and the noise looks exactly how it did.
The thing that noise fixes is like blockiness and basically that banding, which is basically being blocky. Fuck, this is gonna be like niche knowledge. You don't need to know this, but it will help just as an understanding. The way most modern compression works is you have, imagine this is a video, right? And you have a person speaking here. Imagine it's a talking head video. What bitrate literally means is this is how much data you are allowed for each second of frames. So it's like literally how much data is this scene allowed to take. If you're compressing a video and this part of the scene is still, the encoders are smart enough to say, put less data here, put all of the bitrate to the moving section. They have like this complex algorithm for it. But the problem is, let's say there's super subtle movement, like a gradient or a dark moving background. It will think that there's not very little movement here, so it'll just give it less like bandwidth, basically. The way you trick that is by adding noise, which is little dots. So it tricks the like encoding algorithm to thinking that there's movement here. That's why it fixes the blockiness and the banding problem. Does that make sense? But I would try even like 1 to, I max score like 9%, 8%. 50 is crazy. Yeah. Yeah, but that's texture, basically adding like noise, gradients, textures, all of that good stuff. You can see like examples here. Instead of just having a flat thing, it's got a gradient, this cool like star overlay, you've got a grid, you've got bubbles, you got like this film burn thing. It just helps.
What is halftone textures? Is it just like
It's like these dots, right? Halftone.
Oh, you have the
Like a comic book.
You have it on the background.
Yeah, oh yeah, I have it here. So yeah, I use these principles myself, I promise. But examples of those, you can see the background isn't just like flat. You've got, okay, here you've got like a grid and also the radial thing, halftone, and just like random shit that you don't even notice. Like, there's like this weird ink bleeding thing that if you really pay attention to it, that's when you start learning how to do it. The hard part about learning this is when it's done well, you don't notice it. So my goal here isn't even to teach you how to do it, it's more just bringing your attention to it because I trust all of you can actually do it once you know it's there. So, yeah.
Wait, so that's just like creating separation.
Yeah, all of this is just to create depth, which is a lot, I know, but basically, yeah, just sandwiching elements. So this is similar to textures, like instead of having it just behind someone, having it behind and in front, so it kind of sandwiches them in, makes it feel, creates layering. So here, he's got like a noise thing, and like this little sparks, little overlay. Can you guys see that? Or is it too small? Cool. He's got it behind him, and he's got some in front. So it just sandwiches him in, makes this image feel like it's part of the scene rather than separated. So same thing here, like I've got very similar, this was from one of my scenes. I've got it behind, but I've got it in front as well. And what you do, let's say you have an overlay, right? You duplicate it, but you slightly offset it in terms of time, so that it's not like directly on top, it's like sort of randomly moving. And the last one is distortion. Basically, making shit look slightly 3D. You can do this through distortion, lens distortion in Premiere. You can use basic 3D, or you can go into After Effects. It's up to you. I personally just use Premiere for most of it, and it gets along fine. That was in Premiere. So basic 3D. Instead of just having these items come in, everything's slightly tilted towards the middle. If you guys get the vibe. So it just creates more focus towards here. This one, what did I do? What did I even do on this one? Oh yeah, the background, like the grid is sort of like curved outwards slightly. This one is curved inwards. The background and the phone is like sort of distorted. This one, the whole thing's tilted. So it just creates depth. So basically that's everything for depth. Got layering, drop shadows, glows, color, blurs, vignettes, textures, distortion. You don't have to use all of them, but you can use some of them. I don't know if you guys would find that useful to picture, but that's my mindset now but it has been my mindset for the last while on depth. You don't use everything, but there are tools that you can use. So yeah, that's everything on depth. I don't think we're gonna go through all the design principles in that much detail, but I think, because you guys were unanimously saying depth was the most interesting one. Do you have any questions on that one? No? Cool. Did you have any, what other questions did you guys have on design principles?
I mean, to me, it kind of like answered everything.
Yeah, because if you guys were struggling with that, I think that's the main one. Cool.
Yeah, because depth is huge.
Cool, and colors sort of came into that. The color wheel is the main thing. You need a color wheel up.
Yeah, I do the color wheel.
Yeah, you gotta get a color wheel up when you're working. Dynamic principles, we go over next. Cool. Pretty much, I will only start moving shit around my screen once I have it in the final position. This is a huge mindset shift that I think a lot of creators would benefit from. And it kind of comes into complex animations too. You know when you have like these crazy, like, fucking hell. You know when you have these crazy animations where it's like shit's moving around and all of that stuff? I'm not moving it into position. I'm first setting its position, then I move it where it needs to go. So for example, let's say I have a scene where it's like, I'm trying to animate a comment box. So you have like the comment box, right? And all I'm doing right now, in fact, I started doing it now, I'm just building it in the middle of the screen. So in the middle of the screen, I just started building a comment box. So I'm building it, I put the little thing, I put the text exactly where it goes, I put the little like 4 days ago, whatever, and I make it look like how I actually want it. There's no animations, it's just in the center. There's not even depth animations, depth effects, nothing. All I'm getting right here is, I just want it to look like an actual YouTube comment box. So are the spacings all right? Like, is this spacing the same as this one? Is this balanced? Is the font the right font? This is the design stage. Once I've designed it, what I will usually do is, if I've worked on it in the middle, I'll nest it, put it where it needs to go, and then animate that. If it's a thing where I need to animate the actual text coming in, I will first design this, and before I nest it, I will basically like move this piece into its place. Because now I can just add a slide and preset to this and it'll look fucking amazing. You know what I mean? Because I promise you, if you look at some of the animations that you like love, very simple animations. Like, you don't actually need to be that complex. It just looks good because they got the design stage right. Does that make sense? Cool. Yeah, dynamic principles. Is there anything else? I guess I can run over them quickly. You guys find that useful? Or if you don't find this useful, tell me. I'll skip over.
Yeah.
Skip over or no?
No.
Oh, cool. Yeah, this is what I think in terms of when I'm adding motion. The first thing is I want to do it to context of the actual edit. So it's not about smooth or not smooth. It's not about fast or not fast. It's for this context what makes sense.
How do you know what makes sense?
You just have to watch that part of the video. Like, so I'll give you an example. If there's a documentary video and they're talking about how someone just got murdered, probably don't want like some super fast sliding of like a gun and then like, you know what I mean? Like you'd probably have it a lot slower. And so if someone was secretly killed, you wouldn't have like a super fast sliding. You would go slower because it's sort of showing that secret vibe, if that makes sense. In terms of colors, in terms of all of that, okay, if someone was getting murdered, do you think it would be brighter or darker colors that you'd use?
Darker.
Exactly. Like all of us have this sort of natural understanding of what would work. It's just about asking yourself what would work in this context. Like what does this scene actually mean? And for example, let's say for context, honestly, I think thinking in terms of positive or negative would be a good start. So if you're just getting started with this context stuff, is it a good scene or is it a bad thing that they're talking about? So if they're talking about a good thing and it's more hype, it's higher energy, yeah, faster slides, smoother slides would work. But sometimes it actually works against the editor when they make it super smooth. Does that make sense? Or no? They will have something come in like some super smooth, fast animation when the guy's speaking super slowly, or he's explaining something extremely slowly like this, and it's like the speed of the animation just doesn't match how fast he's speaking. But on a game,
You have to match him. You can't just create something yourself.
yeah,
So
you match him.
make your own context of the scene.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
What do you mean?
Can I not change the context of the scene myself?
Somewhat, but you have certain footage to play with.
Okay.
So you can start with a base. So this is sort of how I use presets. I'll apply a preset, it might give me this, right? Let's say that's a sliding preset. If it's a guy speaking a lot slower, I'm gonna apply that preset and just move this keyframe over here. That's what I'm gonna do. Like it doesn't take long to apply to context, it just takes intention. So I will move that keyframe here and now suddenly it becomes this. And that looks so much slower, which might fit that context. Or you might have a situation where you move this keyframe here. It just totally depends. Does the context thing make sense? Yeah? Cool. Like another good one that maybe you'd find useful, like you're editing a Minecraft video and a block like smoothly slides into position. Minecraft is a very like blocky, pixely type game. It should be a bit rough. You know what I mean? It should crash into position. That's what I mean by context. Digestibility, basically don't make more than one main movement at a time. One thing should happen at a time. Let's say you're doing this comment box animation. Do you guys understand what I mean by this drawing? Like you've got a comment box, you've added all these elements. Don't have this profile picture slide in at the same time as the text. Even if you offset it by like 5 frames, it makes a huge difference. Because fundamentally, they can only look at one place at a time. So you slide one thing in, and then you slide the next thing in, and then maybe you slide the next thing in. If something doesn't take that long to digest, like a quick picture, you can give it like 5 frames and then slide in the next thing and you're fine. If something takes a lot longer to digest, let's say you're doing like an article and you just highlight something, it takes like half a second for people to digest that it's an article, there's words. Then it takes them half a second to read the words. Then it takes them another half second to understand what those words mean. Okay, you probably want to leave that on for like 0.5, 1 second before you do the next major movement. So one major movement at a time. Do you want to see this in the context of an edit? Would that help?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, cool. Let's find one. What do I have in my portfolio? You know what, I'll take this to its natural extreme. I'll go on the Sona video, which is like ridiculous animations, and you'll see I still follow this. We'll go in like 0.25 speed. Cool. So pretty much what you have is, please load. Bomba cat. There we are. Okay, cool. Here, the main thing coming up is this hey. Because they're coming up together, I don't mind these two coming together, but what you'll see is hey, broskies. They don't come up at the same time. The hey broskies, one word at a time. Next big thing is this what's up. This serves just as a background element. You'll notice here, it's sort of like the Sona comes up, then the text, And this is like the brink of like how fast something's going, right? Because her audience is like 10-year-olds. Welcome back to my, so this is now one section. And now when she says channel, I put in a channel. So it's like, you'll notice I'm only really visualizing one word at a time if you listen to it.
Hey, broskies, what's up? It's Sonia. Welcome back to my channel.
But do you see how like each word that's as fast as you're ever gonna need to get. Like you don't need to be that fast. But do you see how like each word was said, I visualized that. Then the next word was said, then I visualized that. It's never, I'm visualizing these two words now. It's always like one at a time. What this looks like in a more chill context, let's find one. Let me see, let's do, what animations I do here?
Rich, that you got a Ferrari drunk. Imagine being so rich that you got a Ferrari.
So you notice I didn't do the second subtitle at the exact same moment as the car coming up. If you,
Imagine being so rich that you got a Ferrari.
so do you notice like the second subtitle comes up a tiny bit before the car? So that you get a Ferrari, I wait for the word Ferrari to be said, then I bring up the Ferrari. It's like, it's super subtle, but if I brought up this second subtitle and the car straight away at the same time, it would just be so overwhelming within the first second. So I actually split it up by like half a second. Do I sound autistic or does this make any sense?
No, makes sense.
Are you consciously thinking about this?
Yeah,
This is just you
this is very much intentional.
Okay.
If I do it by accident, I will just move the animation a little bit. But yeah, all of this is intentional, man.
You got a Ferrari dropped off at your house like it's Amazon Prime. Or
But you notice I wait for the Amazon Prime to like play out a little bit, then I cut it off. So let's say he says the word Amazon Prime. So these are the words, right? That's the waveform. I start it here and let him say Amazon Prime and keep it on screen rather than waiting right till the end and it stays on for like half a second. And as soon as the animation is finished, we cut off. What I do, the animation was here where it slid in and I let it sit for a little bit rather than the animation comes in and I cut it out. So whenever you have like a cool slide in or you have something bop in or whatever, zoom in, you've got to let the animation play out, at least let it sit for a few frames, preferably longer if it's harder to understand information. This is the biggest mistake I find people do.
Wouldn't you have to cut it correctly first though?
Explain.
Like if you're, like let's say you cut everything and you don't allow any breathing room in the cut. Wouldn't that be?
If you fucked up not really fucked up, if the pacing doesn't allow for it, you just J-cut it. So like, let's say this was the word Amazon Prime, and then this was the next clip with like the next words. Let's say this is where he said Amazon Prime, and the animation for it to look good, the minimum it could take was this, yeah? All I would do is just extend this clip here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it would stay on screen a little longer. Especially finance editors fuck this up so much. Why are you laughing? What did you laugh at, bro? You had finance editors like, look at these retards. Adult students is crazy. But yeah, finance guys fuck this up all the time. Where it's like you have a scene, you bring up like some cool text like a Stripe dashboard, and the second the number comes up and like they finish the animation, it just cuts to the next scene. It's like, dude, like you just brought it up, give it half a second. Because you adding half a second where you just J-cut a little bit, it flows so much better. So as soon as new information, just take this for digestibility. When new information comes on screen, does the person have long enough to understand it? That's all digestibility is.
What would you do if the context is neutral?
Context is?
It's just neutral. It's neither positive nor neither negative. Say, for example, it's talking about a guy walking down the street, grabbing his bike. And it takes like, that's 4 seconds.
So is this in the context of what? Color? Or?
No, like in general, so we were talking about the context and then how to
Oh, okay.
like, make animation or
Yeah.
do the edit based on context.
It's not really like
The context is
binary. Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's not really like binary plus or minus. It's sort of like how good, how bad. So like maybe it's like if he's going to somewhere good, it might be like slightly positive. If he's grabbing his bike because there's a murderer, it's probably more negative. So like it's on the spectrum, right?
Okay. So
Yeah.
you should kind of like make a sense of anticipation. Like if it's something positive is going to happen, so you have to like animate the neutral movement. So you kind of have to like fit the future, right? Like what would happen next?
Yeah. So
So
you're
it
sort
has
of
to be, like-
foreshadowing.
Okay.
I get what you're saying. So let's give that example of the bike. Let's say there's the context where for the bike, the guy's saying, I need to go grab my bike. And it's like, he's excited because he needs to go see his friend who hasn't seen in ages. If you say like, I need to go grab my bike, it might be super fast, it could be smooth, that's fine. If it's, I need to go grab my bike, as in like, there's a guy running after me who's trying to kill me, I'm probably not even gonna have a slide in. I'm probably just gonna have a hard cut or like a flashback type animation where it just goes to like his bike sitting there with no one on it to show that he's not with his bike. Like, do you see that the context has completely changed how I would visualize it?
Okay. So you have to like make the neutral bit more like a foreshadowing. For
Yeah.
what's coming next.
Yeah, pretty much. Cool.